The the third most defining thing is actually fulfilling your dreams. And recently, you had Smiling Friends come out. It dropped pretty surprisingly on the internet world. And it is amazing. And so congrats, first of all, on that. Second of all, I love it. Third of all, I've watched it a couple of times. And I'm ready to grill you with all of my Smiling Friends questions.
Grill me up. First of all, thank you. But yeah, I'm second of all, grill me up. I'm ready to be grilled on the spot. Off the hip, folks. None of this is written. None of this is pre-recorded. Well, the whole thing is pre-recorded, but none of this is written down. It's all improvised, all off the hip.
The first thing I want to ask you about is the defining thing that I couldn't stop thinking about for probably the first 4 days after first watching the pilot, and that is the guy living in the wall. Because I first just need to know whose idea was that, where did it come from, and just to let you know how I couldn't stop thinking about the guy living in the office wall.
Well, first of all, what's funny is we almost cut that guy. Actually, we almost did it because when we wrote the original script, it was like when we wrote and recorded. In fact, the ending was actually different. There's a couple different things, and the wall guy was one of those scenes that just it was really funny, but it was like one of the longest scenes in the whole thing. It's like a minute long or something. Just that one conversation, and so we got to some point where we're near the end when we were kind of in the editing bay deciding what to cut and what to keep, and luckily we kept it. But I think that was an idea that I think it was just something Michael and I both pitched, and the whole, to us from the get-go, kind of the original fun of the show to us was these crazy, colorful, weird-looking characters, almost like aliens. They're just weird-looking. You can't really say that they look like this or like that because, they have no ears or nose, but they're not animals and they're not insects. They're just these weird things. But as crazy as they look, they're real. And I think if I could explain the show to anybody and try to pitch it to what to us makes it work, and you really didn't even get a lot of this in the pilot, which is why we're so excited if we get to make more. There's a lot of the world we really want to look at, a lot of the characters. But just that joke of these blue and green characters sitting there, but they're breathing and their chests are kind of, they're just real. That's the joke. Like they blink and they have heart problems and they have ADD and they're like, these characters don't hit a wall and they flatten out. They're like, they have real, if you hit a character in the head with a hammer, they would have like a seizure. And so that was the joke to us, just like also animating the characters breathing and their eyes moving around and them kind of tapping. And part of that whole world to us also was just kind of realistic arguments and kind of talking how people talk. And again, you don't get a whole lot of that kind of dialogue in the pilot because it moves really quick, I feel like. There's a lot kind of packed in there. So that and I think maybe at the beginning when he's showing him the alien are really kind of the only two moments, like, and maybe the boss when he comes back to the computer, but there's not a whole bunch of those moments where it's really kind of trying to sound like two guys talking. And so our inspiration was just to kind of put that energy and that kind of DNA into the pilot somewhere. And if we get to make more, we have a lot of those moments planned where I don't feel like it ever takes over the show, but it always kind of stops the show for a second to have those moments. And I feel like, again, you'll see more of that, hopefully, if we get to make more of those weird, kind of just really hyper real moments between characters where the joke is kind of like there's no joke. They're just talking and they're just really arguing and they're really pissed off at each other.
There's I'm so glad that you said that because I noticed that towards the beginning, and I rewatched it this morning, but I can't remember what the conversation was. All I remember was I thought it was funny that I believe it was your character, Charlie, just ended a conversation by just going, okay. Like that was the end of the conversation. You just go, okay.
Yeah, a lot of it is just that. Yeah, it was near the beginning when he's trying to show Pim the thing on the TV. But that's how when Michael and I improvise for the characters, that's pretty much how most of the conversations go. It's like, hey Charlie, look at this. All right, man. Okay. It's just that. But there's something so funny because that's real. Like everybody's had that moment where you're trying to show your friends something on YouTube or on like there's 5 or 6 people around sometimes and you show somebody a cool video and nobody's paying attention and you're like, yeah, you can turn that off. I wasn't even watching it. that kind of thing. Those little moments of just weird humiliation and awkwardness where nobody acknowledges it. Those unspoken things are so unbelievably funny to me. Where it's like, whatever, turn it off. It doesn't matter. It's fine. I already showed you the part I wanted to show you. It's whatever. Like that to me is so fun. I've had that happen and everybody's had that happen. Everybody has had a moment like that where it's like, all right, well, I guess nobody's listening.
Where you're so excited to show somebody and share a moment with somebody else, and they just could care less about anything.
Yeah, and it's not even that they're being mean to you. The real comedy is they don't even know how much, they weren't even paying attention enough to know that you were super excited about it. So then you try to save face and you go, yeah, it was stupid. I can't remember what it was anyways. It's dumb. Yeah, it was kind of funny. I forgot how, it was actually not that funny rewatching it now. So, just try to save face it any way you can. But, we hope we can put a lot more of that in the show, in those little moments where it's deserved. I don't think it'll, like, if you watch a show like Home Movies, which is, I love that show a lot, the whole show is that kind of. So I think if I could boil the show down to anything, I think mostly it's the characters are crazy looking, but they're alive and they're real, hopefully is what you come away with after watching. But I don't feel like we'll ever kind of get into that the whole show. We're always going to have a spine of a story. We're kind of trying to get from A to B, which is something we really wanted to try to put into, which is the model we love for that is Seinfeld, which is Seinfeld. They never had a serious moment. They never had, I think their motto above their writer's room was no hugging, no learning for Seinfeld. In other words, I think I mentioned this last time I was here, but basically the idea of it was George and Kramer and Jerry and Elaine are never going to hug and say, I really learned the big lessons. And, it was always stupid. It was always meant for laughs, but it always did tie up at the end. It wasn't just like the plot was still there and it was always really clever. It was always still funny, but the way it tied up was always interesting. And,
right. But every single sitcom ended exactly that way. Where everything starts over, even though there was a big dramatic change throughout the episode that they had to deal with, where like all of a sudden Urkel's blind or whatever. But by the end of it, he gets his eyesight back and ultimately learned like the most valuable lesson about friendship. And
exactly. What Seinfeld would do was, all right, let's say George, just for example, let's say George is the one who goes blind, right? At the end of the episode, they would not resolve it because that's funny, but they would still have that somehow tie in to Jerry's story or something. You know what I mean? They always find a really funny way to resolve something without fixing it, because the whole joke of a plot usually is that it's broken. You know what I mean? So they would never fix it and make it unfunny, but they would always use the wrong thing with the plot to fix another plot. Right. And it's kind of hard to articulate exactly what I mean.
Because George is blind, he accidentally bumps into something, and then
to Jerry's girlfriend, and she spills coffee. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It was like, my $1,000 jacket that Jerry. But yes, exactly. They always found a way to make it. And that's something I think Seinfeld and maybe Curb Your Enthusiasm were the two shows that I've seen, comedy shows, that are really, really good at that. And I think that's just Larry David. Always Sunny does a pretty good job of that sometimes, but. And South Park does too, but I think Seinfeld maybe is because they have 4 storylines that they would always wrap up, and it was always unexpected. Anyways, I don't want to ramble too much about that, but yeah, that's something we took a page from, and if I could see any show that people start to copy more in terms of just how, not even the style of writing, but just in terms of what to take away from how to do it, I think Seinfeld is a great blueprint for like how to write a comedy show. Where you in South Park too, but you're still being loyal to the plot and you're still resolving the plot, but you're not making it serious. You're not undoing the comedy of what the plot is.
And how do you deal with that when an episode is 12 minutes? I mean, Smiling Friends was about 12 minutes. Is that right on the runtime?
Yeah, it's 11. Yeah, it's basically 12.
11.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the two formats are basically.
How is that challenging then?
It's really weird. I feel like Smiling Friends could have been a half hour just because of how much happens in it, and I feel like we could have taken our time. But Michael and I come from kind of the YouTube world where we're used to making 2 or 3 or 4 minute long videos, and the amount of stuff you have to pack in to 3 or 4 minutes, it's not even because 3 or 4 minutes long is some great time length. It's just because anything above that, it's going to become a little bit impractical to make something like that consistently. So kind of, I think 2 to 4 minutes is kind of the sweet spot, because that's about all one guy can make. Even if you hire help, really, it's all you can make on a consistent basis. But because of that requires a lot of the stuff you make is really packed in and really dense. And we thought it would be kind of a fun challenge to do 11 minutes. And we were like, okay, well, best case scenario, it just means, hopefully that means we're cutting kind of all the fat and it's just the stuff we really like. And sure enough, at the very end of it, I think our script was like 17 pages. Usually the rule is like 1 page per minute, depending on how fast you go. It could be a little bit above or a little bit below, but I think our script was like 17 pages. It was super high. And then we recorded it, and it was like about that. It was like 15. I think we cut some jokes down to be about, it was like 16 minutes. So we had to cut like 4 minutes worth of stuff. I think originally the original ending was Charlie gives this big speech about like, oh, you know what? It's like a big heartwarming thing, but it's a joke. But, I think Alan says, the red character says, I got my cheese back. And instead of him saying, get over here, he says like, oh, I've learned that, he didn't say I've learned, but he said something. It was basically him going like, you guys are all my friends, and I just, I'm sometimes mean to you guys. We are. It was just some rambling, stupid, long thing. And also we had a weird thing about the boss character. He was doing a song. One of the only things we didn't put into the pilot that we think represented the show was the music aspect. And Sick Animation, Mark M, the guy who does the voice of the boss, he's really, really funny, and I would recommend everybody check him out. Sick Animation on YouTube. But he does music and he does albums, and he just actually put an album out recently. And we really, really want to put in, if we get to make more, we really want to put in a lot of his music. And also Michael does music, so we really wanted to include a musical aspect. And because of time, we had to cut out a boss song that originally he was supposed to come in at the end and sing, but it was way too much, so we had to cut that out. So I guess the short answer is, it ended up being exactly what you would think. And as we, before we even finished the pilot, we started writing kind of spec scripts for what potential other episodes could be. And we kind of have had the same thing going on, which is some stuff ends up being cut and being put as, well, maybe we could do that if we do another episode, or, you know what I mean? So, but I like that. I think it's better that way. If it was half hour, I feel like we could do that fine. I just like the challenge of it, of the 11-minute thing. And the last thing I'll say, because I'm talking too much right now, is I think one of the good benefits of coming from the internet and of writing too big is that actually if a lot happens like that, how we have it, and we have a B story too, which is kind of rare for 11 minutes to have a B story, is I think it makes it a little bit more rewatchable, because in that 11 minutes, we packed a lot of stuff in the background too, which I don't think everybody's even caught all the background stuff we put in. Like, there's some stuff I've seen people tweet at us of like, oh, they caught that, but there's a lot of stuff people haven't even seen yet. So I feel like if you watch it, 2 or 3 times, you can start looking at the background and you start noticing jokes that you didn't even notice before. So I think that's one of the big benefits, and I like doing it that way, even though it's definitely like a headache to have to cut a lot of stuff out.